Hi, hey, and all those other greetings, Spade Adventures. I'm Jake Spins, welcoming you guys back to my gaming and unboxing channel, where today we have another Sonic Jakks specific figure unboxing for you guys. Now, normally when I do these, I end up trying to do them in a wave. I did try to actually do this yesterday, but I was not feeling great, and it was a good 20 minutes of me just kind of accidentally bashing the figures a little bit, because to be honest, I'm not the biggest fan of them, and then by the time I got to the last figure, which is the reason I bought the entire wave, I was feeling so terrible that I couldn't even get a sentence out. So I figured, you know what? I'll just really quickly show these guys before we get into the main figure, and in a way, well, I've done the whole wave, and it'll be nice and quick. So this wave is actually a filler variant wave, which, yes, this is pretty common in figures. However, there's a specific reason why I'm not a big fan of this, which we'll be getting to in a second. Because these variants are actually supposed to be neon, but to me, they don't seem very neon, and, well, I'll show you guys with the first figure. Of course, the first figure is going to be Sonic. With any variant wave, you're most likely going to have a Sonic, so it makes sense. So let's start off with the positives of this before jumping into the negatives. So positive is the fact that we have a very classic Sonic type of blue, which is pretty neat, as even though sure we do see a lot of classic Sonic in the modern day, we don't see modern Sonic with the classic color scheme, at least for the blue. Now, the yellow parts you could say are a bit classic, but they do look a bit... they look a bit more like a sickly color than the actual classic color, which is unfortunate. The shoes are also pink. Now, let's jump into the negatives, because the only other positive is that, well, with this blue and it being closer to a Sonic Colors adventure style of model, there's not much great to this. So first off, the figure itself feels like they kind of just had some Sonic figures that they needed to get rid of, and they just decided to paint them like this. The reason I feel this way is because the joints are a lot looser than before, whereas anytime I move this guy, he feels like he could just break. And I'm not talking like how I originally feel when these things feel like they're going to break. I mean, they feel flimsy. They feel like if I shake this guy up and down just a smidge, his foot's just going to fall off. And trust me, that has happened basically in the past. So that's one negative down. Another negative is, for some reason, they decided that Sonic was a big fan of Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, and they gave him a pink nose. This makes me feel like this is more of a prototype approach. But if you're going for that approach, I just really wish that they would have done the no paint thing like Jazzwares did. But instead, we end up having this. And if they wanted to do neon, they could have just done gray or a more neon color that would have suited his nose a bit more. Even like a darker green. Would it have been weird? Sure. But it would have worked a lot better than pink? I genuinely don't know why they went with this, but for some reason, they did. Not much to say about this guy. So our next one... Oh, by the way, his accessory is the Chaos Emerald, which you might be saying, Spins, why do you just let yourself get suckered in buying these? And as I've said many times in many videos, I'm a collector. Not great with hand-eye coordination, which why I'm not in sports. But I'm a collector. I'm also a sucker, and if you put a different color of Chaos Emerald inside of one of these, then, well, I'm going to buy it. It's very possible that they could have done yellow before, and I suckered myself into this, and it makes it meaningless. But it's possible that, who knows? I'll have to check. But that's one of the big reasons why I get the wave, and also because it's so hard to find them individually. Anyway, though, the next one is probably my least favorite, being Neon Tails. Now, my first reaction to seeing this during my unboxing was, oh, you know what? Maybe him being neon won't be so bad. From far away, it looks like maybe it's closer to like a Super Tails kind of color. So that's fantastic, right? No, because instead of being closer to a neon yellow, where yeah, it is neon yellow, it is a little bit more of like a yellowish greenish, which I very lovingly call mucus green. Now, this isn't any shade to the people who made these or painted these. I'm sure they just went into Photoshop and they just did like a color selector and they figured, you know what? It's quick, it's simple, it's fine, there's not a problem. But it just looks off, and I wish they would have done a lighter color of neon, just closer to his actual color, because then we could have justified it as Super Tails. Because all Super Tails really is just a more yellow Tails with birds around him. So, you know, it wouldn't have been that bad. Now, the sculpt itself is closer to something like the original Tails, which no surprise there, but the joints are actually surprisingly good on this. Despite having criticism of the Sonic one feeling like a throwaway to me, the Tails one actually feels pretty decent and feels like you could actually pose it and not really have much of a problem. So that's great. And of course, the paint job doesn't really have too many issues on it. So definitely a plus, even if I'm not a fan of the color. There's also an easier thing you can see in this guy where the eye color is not neon. It's just that Tails blue. Unless it's a slightly different shade, but I couldn't tell. Same with Sonic. And this guy came with the item monitor, which we have seen before, and essentially this is nice because they can just take one of these, take a bit of cardboard with a different picture and just plop it in there, and there you go, you have a nice accessory. So our last one is Neon Knuckles. Now, Knuckles doesn't show up as often in these, so if you don't have a Knuckles, there's no shame in getting this guy. He also came packaged like this, which, trust me, this pose makes a lot more sense for him to be packaged in than this. Because if you've seen my other unboxing video with Knuckles, you'll know that I very much criticized this pose and was very confused about it. But if you have it like this, when looking forward, it's not that bad and kind of has an adventure fighting style pose. So I think that's pretty cool. Now, all in all, this is probably my favorite out of the three neon ones. It's close to his color scheme, but it's also fairly close to neon. His shoes also look really nice and look pretty classic in my opinion. Now, my one criticism, ironically, is that I wish he was a little bit lighter. Same with the Neon Tails. If they did him a little bit lighter, we could say it's Super Knuckles. But this guy is still pretty close, and it's still a very nice red. However, his muzzle, it's yellow. You know, just like that one power-up in Sonic Adventure. It's yellow. I don't understand why. But hey, it's fine. Now, something that I noticed in the original unboxing is that these parts of the legs were extremely hard to move. So that's a little bit unfortunate, but thankfully, I just collect these things. So I'm not really going to be moving them around, and hopefully I'll find a pretty decent way to showcase this guy. Maybe I could do like a Sonic the Fighters style thing. Ooh, dude, that would actually be really cool if they did like a lower poly version of these figures, and they made them grayscale to be like Sonic the Fighters. Oh, dude, that would actually be cool. That would be really cool. I know Tomy did something like that before. His accessory, by the way, is a checkpoint. This guy's pretty cool. We haven't actually unboxed one of these guys, but it goes left, it goes right. Nothing too special, but it's still pretty cool. And if you have the Green Hill Zone playset, you can have a little bit of like a Super Smash Brothers battle going on. Especially if you have other Jakks-specific figures like Mario's, Fox McCloud. There's a fair amount that you can put in there, so pretty neat. Alright, so that's all we have to talk about for the neon ones, but we have one figure that is important for this entire wave, and makes it justifiable for my wallet. That figure is Amy Rose. Now, I did have a figure of her when she was made by Jazzwares. However, I missed the pairing of her with her Picopeker Hammer, and I was kind of bummed about that because I missed so many cool ones like that. But now they have her with the hammer, and I have an Amy with the hammer, and it's so cool, guys. It is very cool, and it's such a good looking model too. It also looks very clear on the camera where I have it positioned, which is fantastic. There's a full line of the wave. We showed all of that off. If anybody is interested, feel free to check that out. And of course, the cool thing is we actually have other figures coming like Rouge the Bat and Omega. So like there are so many different teams that you'll be able to set up with this, and that is just awesome. All right, guys, let's open up Amy Rose. I'm also hoping that at some point we might get like Cream the Rabbit or Big the Cat, because we don't often get Cream. We do get a fair amount of Bigs though, but Cream is definitely on my list for that. Because if we can do a full set of Sonic Heroes, like, oh, that would be so cool. All right, Pika, Pika. I don't know why it's called the Picopeker Hammer or why it just makes the sound of Pika, but it does in game and also in the comics. Like it's just a little blurb that just says Pika. It's kind of funny to see this like Hello Kitty style hammer just like hit a rock and then just like destroy like half the scenery and just go Pika. So that's pretty funny. This hammer also first debuted inside of Sonic Adventure. Sorry, my dog was downstairs and at this moment just decided to start scratching at my door. Anyway though, the hammer itself is painted very nicely. Colors are fantastic. So this is my first really good look at... You've got some really great yellows. Everything is correct. Some really nice detail there as well, and as always. And there's actually two separate types of brown, one being an orange on the handle. Something that I didn't actually know about this character. So that's really, really cool. Also, if you had like some Ace Attorney characters, you can have Amy be the judge. Amy would totally be the judge in a court, just saying. Alright guys, now it's time to talk about what we've all been waiting for. Amy Rose is here. I'm gonna actually try to put her hammer. Yeah, there we go. Amy, that's awesome! Except I'm gonna have it like this. Maybe a little bit to the side. Dude, there we go. There's Amy. She's looking hype, dude. Oh, she's looking hype. The one problem with this character is the way her dress is. It's very much like a triangle. So because it's a triangle, you have to be very careful like not to raise it up too much. Just saying. Just saying. So let's look at this figure itself. Let's start off with the head. So first things first, let's discuss the elephant in the room. That smile, it's a bit too expressive. Amy's always been very cheerful though, so it is in character, but I feel like something like with either the smile's too big or the eyes are a little bit too small. It's really just a baseless criticism that isn't really needed, but something that I figured I'd point out because this could be a deal breaker for some people. Other than that though, the eyes are the correct color, and the nose, it's very nice to see a nice dark button nose rather than a pink nose. The character you'd expect to be very like Christmas inspired and very festive is the one character who thankfully is very normal this time of year. But man, I could definitely see like her having some kind of a Christmas variant with green dress, reindeer ears instead of on the headband, and you know, even a Rudolph nose. I feel like she'd go wild during a Christmas party. Like she'd just go all out, do all the cooking, she'd host, you know, she'd set up everything. That's just how Amy is, you know? Just very excited and very ready to help people and just have fun. All right, going back to the figure, the color of pink is perfect, as well as the length of her hair. Yes, this is hair being kind of like a tails tuft, and this also very much confused me as a kid, because I'm like, wait, so Amy's a hedgehog, but she has the little tails tuft here, and the back spines that look much like an echidna, kind of like Knuckles. So I was so confused. I'm like, I know she's a hedgehog, but is she actually like an echidna? Like, why does she have that little like tails thing? It's cute, but I'm so confused. So that's pretty great. Her eyelashes are also a really great length, maybe a tad too long, but at that point, that's really just nitpicking. You also have the ears, which, as always, look very good. They're very shaded, so it does look a bit muted. However, I already know that those are definitely 100% the correct colors. Going on the top, we also have her red headband, which also is very, very perfect. So, as always, very much an A+ so far. Going to the arms, we have a very strange pose, though if you pose her correctly, it feels like it could work pretty well. Unfortunately, you have the bending arms instead of having the joints on the elbows, which I do think is very strange that they decided to do this, but it's Jakks Pacific's decision, so it's fine. The wrists also seem to go like 360 or at least up and down, which is a bit strange. But all in all, the paint is looking really nice, and unlike Shadow's rings, her rings are actually not shiny, which is accurate to the games. Not sure why they did that, however, for Shadow, his are actually power inhibitors. So maybe it's because Amy doesn't have those and Shadow does. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below. Her gloves are also both in fists. Very nice that she can hold her Picopeker Hammer as well. And as always, her dress is perfect and definitely either defying gravity or has some sort of like pins in there just to hold that triangle shape. Very Jetsons-esque, which is pretty neat. And of course, you also have the back, which has a loop at the like below there. So that's pretty neat. And the white rim there. So far, everything's looking great. The leg joints are actually very smooth. The knees are very stiff though, but this is a character that I can see falling a little bit forwards or backwards, so I'm not going to play around with that too much. We also have one of the only Sonic characters to have boots. And man, they look really good. Perfect length. You've got the perfect colors. You've got them up to the, like, just everything here is just perfect. Even the gray is the perfect gray. I've said this in so many videos and I'm becoming such a broken record, but it really is like they just took the spirit of Amy and they just ripped it out of the game and made a figure. Are there a few things off? Sure. But it's really just the meaningless nitpicks of a Sonic fan that are going in there. And to be honest, how many times do we actually get Amy with her Picopeker Hammer? The answer? Not really that often. Now, of course, before we can end this video, we need to do one thing. That being to compare Amy with other figures of her from other companies. Alright guys, so to save on some time, I only have 2 of them, and even though there are more figures, one of them is a Tomy one of Amy from the Booms series, so I decided not to show that one off. However, I do have 2 of these. We'll show off the one that doesn't really have too much to it. I've had this one for quite a long time. This is a Toy Island bendable figure of Amy. It's a little bit damaged, however, you can see certain things like the eyelashes aren't painted, the spikes aren't really modeled or something correctly. They're not really positioned correctly. And you might be saying, Spins, that's probably because it's an old bendable figure that doesn't really mean too much. However, Tails actually had his correctly, and his was a separate piece, which makes this even more interesting. Her headband is way too thick, and you can see there's pretty much most things just being solid and trying to be in one piece as much as possible. There's not a lot to this figure, and you might say that, well, some of it may be from damage. You would be correct. However, this is one of the better conditioned ones of this figure that I have. And yes, that does mean that this figure survived my childhood. So there is a quick comparison. I think it's pretty safe to say, unless you have a very specific preference in style, you pretty much know who you're going to pick is the better one. Now, of course, that is not the only Amy I have, because I do have the Jazzwares Amy. This is actually one of the first figures of any character that I've had, and very early Jazzwares. So the quality is pretty good. However, it should be noted that this hand is actually from a Sonic and the Black Knight figure that broke because her hand fell off. And then I lost it. So because of that, I actually just replaced it with one of Sonic's hands. Which, yeah, it's unfortunate, but this is how my Amy looks. So let's take a comparison. So for the Jazzwares Amy, you can see a few differences. Well, if the camera decides to not be blurry, which is funny because Jakks, it's fine. This one, it's not. So, few differences, I'll just start listing them off. The eyes are very small and kind of creepy. She looks like she's from that episode of Sonic X where she gets possessed by a ghost. Yeah, not really the best look for a figure. Her eyelashes are also way too short and very thin. She also has a mouth that is mostly in the center and closed. The eyes definitely not helping there. The headband, however, is actually a pretty good size for the size of this figure, and the back does actually have its own back spikes. You can see on the Jakks one, those are more curved, whereas this one is a little bit more longer and down. That's mostly probably just a style choice or just product of the era. You do have the part in the back, and you can see that this has a more of a shine to it, like in the dress. Instead of being fabric, it's very much Jetsons and decides to be metal. So that part is very interesting. The rim is also not nearly as smooth. That could either be from the figure or just from me being a kid, just kind of breaking it down. The wrists, or the hand, it's actually in a really neat pose, and I've always kind of liked this. I think the other hand was pretty much in the same pose, maybe even a closed one. The ring is also pretty decent, though it's a lot more muted and closer to a gold color. You also have the shoes being the same as the dress, which those are actually a pretty good length, and the legs do seem a bit longer, but that's probably just because of how different proportionally they are. So all in all, these two do have some differences. I would say, though, that I definitely prefer the Jakks-specific Amy, as there's a lot more attention to detail in that one, and all around, it's just a lot, it has a lot more personality, it has a lot more that's accurate, and all in all, in my opinion, it's just a way better figure. So if you're looking to pick one up, definitely get this one. Well, especially since this one is going to be a lot of money nowadays. That's going to be it for this video. Let me know if you guys enjoyed it. If you did, hit that like button, share us out with everyone known love, brother, mother, sister, father, iguana. Let me know what other characters you would like to see inside of the Jakks Pacific line for Sonic, or even any other series, and what you think of this figure. Are you hunting for it? Would you like to get it? Who knows? Let me know. And if anybody's wondering where you can get this, I'm sorry. These are actually very hard to track down, and I usually just buy them in a lot from Big Bad Toys. But definitely make sure to check your Targets, check your local retail stores. If they carry these, they might be a little bit hard to find. Eventually, they should be on eBay and hopefully easier to find. My opinion on this is pretty much, if it's going to be a lot of money to try to get this and you just want this, it's okay to wait it out. It might even be about a year before they start hitting retails more commonly, but at the moment, Jakks Pacific does have the license. So there's not really any reason to worry, and we know that they're going to continue to have the license for at least another year. So keep that in mind, and sometimes it does pay to be patient. I hate having to say that, but there have been stuff like the cat plush back there. I paid about $100 for it. Now I could pay $40 for it on the official website. So, but yeah, that's going to be it. As I said, if you enjoyed, do all that stuff. And sorry about the blur for the camera. I figured it's the outro. It didn't really make too big of a difference. But it's time to Pico out. So, Amy, without further ado, woo! Hiya! Sorry if that was sharp. I was trying not to be too sharp. But you know, I can't really do an Amy voice. At least I've never tried to. But yo, dude, if we get Amy in the Sonic movie, dude, that would be cool. That would be cool. I think she might show up at the end. That's my assumption. If she shows up at all, it's gonna be there. Anyway, though, see you guys next time. Keep your toes safe, and bye.